Long before history was written in stone, before empires rose and fell, there was a land shaped by wind and water, carved by storms and guarded by towering cliffs. This was Ireland, a land where the sea never truly rests, where the sky stretches endlessly above rolling green hills, and where stories are not just spoken, they are believed. Among the legends that arose in this ancient land, one name stood taller than all others: Finn McCool. Some said he was a giant, others believed he was a man blessed with extraordinary strength. But strength alone does not create a legend. It is the character, the courage, and the wisdom that make a name remembered through centuries. Finn lived in the northern reaches of Ireland, where cliffs rise high above the roaring Atlantic. From there, he could see storms gathering hours before they struck. He led the Fianna, a band of warriors sworn to protect villages and forests, hunting and training under his guidance. Under his leadership, the land felt safe. People could sleep at night knowing that Finn watched over them. But legends have a way of inviting challenges. Across the sea, in the rugged lands of Scotland, another name was rising. Benandonner, a giant of incredible size and pride, had heard of Finn McCool. He believed there could only be one true giant in the world, and he was coming to prove it. The first signs were subtle. Fishermen returned pale and shaken, whispering of enormous shapes moving across distance. Sailors claimed they heard thunder on clear nights, and travelers spoke of mysterious shadows that crossed the ocean before sunrise. Then, one morning, the impossible became real. Stones began to rise from the sea itself, massive pillars lifting upward, locking into place to form a bridge between Scotland and Ireland. The people were terrified. Children clung to their mothers, elders whispered prayers, and warriors grasped their swords in disbelief. Yet Finn stood silently on the cliffs, observing. He did not panic, did not boast, but understood fully what was coming. This was not a raid or a simple challenge. This was a confrontation to his very name, and he would face it with courage, strategy, and wisdom. Oonagh, Finn's wife, stood beside him, calm as always. She understood the power of the moment. Strength alone would not suffice. They would need cunning, patience, and creativity. And in that understanding, a plan began to take shape. The first day the stones emerged, villagers could hardly believe their eyes. Pillars of rock rose from the ocean, massive, unyielding, and perfectly aligned, forming a path that stretched from Scotland to Ireland. Each stone seemed larger than a house, their edges sharp, yet locked together with precision no human hand could achieve. Children pointed in awe, while elders shook their heads, muttering old prayers and invoking the protection of saints and spirits. Finn watched quietly from the cliffs. His heart remained steady, but his mind raced with possibilities. He knew the path was being built deliberately by a giant who sought confrontation. Every stone laid was a step closer to a battle that could shake the land itself. That evening, the Fianna gathered around Finn. Some were eager for combat, their eyes alight with anticipation. Others remained cautious, wary of the overwhelming force they would face. Finn listened to every voice, weighing courage against caution. Leadership, he knew, meant acknowledging fear while forging a path forward. Oonagh approached Finn as the sun dipped below the horizon. "You cannot defeat what you have not seen," she said softly. Finn nodded. "I will go tomorrow," he said. "I will see him with my own eyes." The villagers watched as Finn prepared for the crossing. He knew the stones were unstable, the ocean treacherous, but there was no alternative. Courage was required, but so was careful observation. The first step onto the cold stone path was the beginning of a journey that would test every ounce of his skill, wisdom, and patience. The sea roared beneath Finn's feet as he stepped onto the uneven stones. Waves crashed against the pillars, sending salty spray into his eyes. Each step carried him further from Ireland and closer to the unknown. His mind was calm, his senses alert. He had faced wild beasts, fierce warriors, and treacherous terrain before, but nothing could prepare him for the magnitude of this confrontation. As he reached the Scottish shore, mist covered the land thick and heavy. Then he saw him, Benandonner. The giant's massive frame rose above the mist, shoulders broader than any man alive, arms thick as ancient oaks. The ground seemed to tremble with each step he took. Finn watched silently as Benandonner lifted a boulder larger than a house and crushed it with ease. The sound echoed across the cliffs and the sea. In that moment, Finn felt an unfamiliar emotion, recognition of a force greater than his own. He had never before faced an adversary whose sheer size and power could rival the myths of giants. He returned to Ireland quietly, deep in thought. The encounter was brief, yet it revealed the stakes. Strength alone would not win this challenge. Back in their home, Finn confided in Oonagh. "He is bigger and stronger," he admitted. Oonagh listened carefully. "Then strength will not save us. We need a different approach." Finn understood. She was right. He had always relied on power, but now he would need cunning. Oonagh suggested a plan. They would confront the giant, not with swords or fists, but with strategy and psychology. They would plant seeds of doubt and fear, using imagination as their weapon. Throughout the night, they prepared. A massive cradle was constructed. Blankets were layered to conceal Finn's size. The house was arranged to exaggerate proportions, creating an illusion that would make the giant question what he saw. Every detail mattered. Every element was designed to turn perception into power. By sunrise, the preparations were complete. Oonagh's plan was ready to be enacted, and Finn trusted her completely. Benandonner crossed into Ireland with thunderous steps, his voice booming across cliffs and valleys. "Finn McCool, come out and face me!" Villagers hid behind doors, warriors braced, but Oonagh stepped outside calmly. She greeted the giant as though he were a polite visitor, and Finn remained hidden in the massive cradle disguised as their child. The giant's eyes widened as he approached the house. The child in the cradle seemed enormous, far larger than any infant he had ever imagined. Doubt crept into his mind. What kind of father could produce such a child? Oonagh spoke calmly, planting stories of Finn's legendary strength, exaggerating feats, and letting the giant's imagination fill in the rest. Each word was deliberate, each description meant to seed fear. The giant's mind raced. If the child was this large, how enormous must Finn himself be? Sweat formed on his brow, and a faint tremor passed through his hands. Oonagh's calm voice contrasted sharply with the chaos forming in Benandonner's thoughts. Fear can be more powerful than any weapon. It is subtle, creeping, persuasive, and in Benandonner, it took root quickly. Every tale of Finn's power, every story Oonagh casually shared, magnified in the giant's imagination. By mid-morning, the giant was visibly uneasy. He stepped back, reconsidering the challenge he had traveled so far to confront. Confidence gave way to apprehension. The cradle creaked as Finn shifted slightly, adding to the illusion of strength. Benandonner's curiosity turned to dread. If this was the child, how immense must the father be? Each imagined possibility became a mountain in the giant's mind, and fear grew. Oonagh remained calm, her composure unshaken. She allowed Benandonner's imagination to do the work for her. Strategy had replaced combat. Intelligence had replaced brawn. The giant's hesitation became obvious. The villagers, hidden safely, watched from windows and behind doors, unsure of what was happening but sensing the shift in power. Benandonner finally reached a point where doubt overwhelmed him. The challenge no longer seemed like conquest, it seemed dangerous. Every story, every exaggerated detail Oonagh shared compounded the illusion of Finn's overwhelming might. The giant's pride struggled with his fear. His movements became erratic. Each step back was a retreat from his own imagination. Without warning, Benandonner turned and fled. He tore apart the stone causeway behind him, preventing pursuit, and ran toward Scotland with incredible speed. The sea swallowed much of the broken path, leaving the coastline silent and still. Villagers emerged cautiously. They could hardly believe the giant had retreated without a fight. Finn stepped from the cradle, smiling, not with arrogance but with understanding. Strategy had triumphed over strength. The aftermath was quiet but profound. Finn's actions, guided by Oonagh's wisdom, had ensured safety without a single blow struck. The villagers began to comprehend the lesson. True power lies not only in muscle but in mind and perception. Stories of the event spread quickly, and the legend of Finn McCool grew, not as a man who crushed his enemy, but as a man who used intellect to win without battle. Years passed, but the stones remained, forming what would later be known as the Giant's Causeway. Travelers came from afar to see the towering columns, each one a reminder of that day when wisdom overcame brute strength. The story became a symbol, a lesson for generations. Intelligence, courage, and perception can triumph over raw power. Every visitor who stood at the edge of the coast could feel the echo of that ancient encounter. The legend endured. Finn McCool was remembered not for how hard he could strike, but for how thoughtfully he could act. Standing today along the northern coast of Ireland, you can see the stone columns rising from the sea, and you can imagine the day a giant challenged a man who seemed human yet carried wisdom beyond his years. The story of Finn McCool teaches us that true strength is measured not only by the force one can exert, but by the mind, strategy, and courage to act wisely. If this story captured your imagination, there are countless more legends waiting to be explored on this channel. Tales of heroes, forgotten kingdoms, ancient creatures, and powerful lessons hidden in myth. Subscribe, explore, and join us for the next journey into legend. Every story holds a lesson, and the next adventure is waiting. Finn McCool's tale reminds us that legends live forever, and wisdom will always prevail.